kicking, never quitting. Focus sharp like a blade that's hitting. From white belt dreams to the master flow, Paul Coffey's got the mic, now the stories grow. Technique entails discipline and fire. Each guest brings truth to inspire. Keep kicking, step into your power. Keep kicking, moment to the hour. Every strike, every fall, every rise, it's a journey through a warrior's eyes. Old school, new school, all styles blend. From the mat to the mic, where the arts ascend. Philosophy deep, but the vibe stays tight. Martial minds meeting in the podcast light. Keep kicking, step into your power. Keep kicking, moment to the hour. Every strike, every fall, every rise, it's a journey through a warrior's eyes. Keep kicking. Keep kicking. Paul Coffey leads and the journey begins. Paul Coffey leads and the journey begins. Technique entails discipline and fire. Each guest brings truth to inspire. Keep kicking, step into your power. Keep kicking, moment to the hour. Every strike, every fall, every rise, it's a journey through a warrior's eyes. Keep kicking. Keep kicking. Paul Coffey leads and the journey begins.
Hello, everyone, and welcome once again to Keep Kicking, the martial arts podcast where I have martial conversations with my martial arts friends. Today, I sit down with Rich, and today, if you want to know more about Rich, unless he decides to tell you otherwise, you can do so by watching the Whistle Kick podcast that I have linked in the bio. Other than that, Rich, how are you doing?
I'm doing great. Living my best life. You know,
That's wonderful.
I really am.
That's wonderful. Did you want to introduce yourself, or are we good to get started?
I could just say, my name's Rich Marantz. I live in a little town in southwestern Vermont, and I practice Taoist arts and healing arts and just try and love life, live a simple life, peaceful, teach peace,
That's one.
So, yeah.
Okay, so for some of my students that are watching this, Rich is the gentleman that I've spoken about that has helped me immensely in my own personal journey. He gave me some sound advice, little sage wisdom, if you will, and then gifted me with a book that he had written that has also helped me tremendously. And I want to thank you for that. I will link the book in the description for anybody that wants to pick it up. I've already recommended it to a couple of people. My copy that I keep near and dear to my heart, I've passed along with specific instructions that if it gets damaged, I damage the person that damaged it.
I'm very peaceful, my friend.
I know. I still have this worldly issues. So the first question that I want to ask, the question that starts it all off is, if you were instructing a student on how to heal themselves, how to heal trauma, what techniques would you tell them to focus on? How would you tell them to shape their practice in a way that heals?
Wow, that's a big first question.
This is what your book did,
right? Because that is kind of the question for people that feel that they are caught in their trauma, right?
Mm-hmm.
That their trauma is informing their actions, right? Because I've been there too, where my life was informed based on my trauma.
Mm-hmm.
So there's a number of things. It's not one thing.
Mm-hmm.
And it's evolved for me over time, right? Like since I wrote my book 14 years ago, it's evolved over time. I'd say there's like a couple questions to start with that we ask ourselves, right? So the first question is, how do I feel?
Mm.
and not how do I feel and then labeling it, right? To not label what it is. I feel sad. I feel angry. I feel this. I feel that. I don't label. I don't name my emotions. So the idea is to look inside your body, physically in your body, and say, how do I feel? Because emotions are just energy. That's all
Mhm.
they are. We put words to them so we can talk about them to other people. But if we're not trying to explain to somebody else, we don't need those labels. So the idea is we just ask the question during a situation, we ask the question, how do I feel? And then what I would do is I'd say, okay, where in my body am I feeling this? And what does that feel like? And then the next step is do nothing. Do nothing. Don't try to change it, because the idea is that is just energy. It's
Mhm.
just energy. So to sit with it and accept it for what it is, even if it's really uncomfortable, and then we choose our next action. So I say, okay, so say not long ago I was going through some stuff and I would feel it
Mhm.
right here in my, I would feel this energy right here. I wasn't identifying it. There was a bunch of stuff going on, and right through here, like my esophagus type area, I'd feel it there. And I didn't do anything about it, but then I choose my next action. And because it's energy, it's
Mhm.
pent up energy, stored energy from that, reminds us of from previous situations, it will move just because that's the nature of energy. Energy moves, energy changes. So if we just sit with it and don't try to do anything about it, but then say, okay, I feel you. We can even talk to it. It's, okay, I feel you. I see you. I recognize you. And you're not everything I am. You are not my totality of being. You're just a response, a reaction to something.
Mhm.
So now I choose my next action of the way I want to feel.
Okay.
You see? And then that
Yes.
energy will change. And it takes some patience to feel uncomfortable, to be okay with being uncomfortable. And when we do that enough, we start recognizing what those situations are that bring about particular feelings in our body,
Mhm.
particular, because we can see those feelings as frequencies,
Mhm.
right? They're different levels of frequencies. So generally, if it's a response to a trauma, like an abuse type thing or whatever it may be, that's a low level frequency energy,
Mhm.
right? So say a feeling of shame or a feeling
Mhm.
of guilt, that's a really low frequency. So we recognize, okay, I'm feeling this low frequency of energy, but now we can say, well, what is my state of being? What is the state of being that I want to be in? And I want to be in a high frequency energy.
Mhm.
So then I choose my next action to bring that about. And then the energy will just change. So that's one thing
Mhm.
that we can do. The number one question is, how do I feel? So so it comes down to a really simple two words: pay attention all the time, right? Pay attention without judgment. We want to be so compassionate to ourselves, right? We want to show ourselves this compassion of saying, whatever it is we're experiencing, it's okay. We're just being human. And we just feel that and experience it without because beating ourselves up over it does us no good, right?
I've learned.
That just
I've
feeds
learned.
that low level energy, right? It feeds that lower level energy, that lower frequency of energy. It brings us, our whole being, down to that level.
Mhm.
But if we look at it with a state of love, like look at that energy and look at ourselves and say, I love you anyway, even though you feel like crap. So one of the ways, like I've been thinking about it lately, is if you're sitting in a room with somebody who is like really afraid, because oftentimes these feelings come up out of fear, right?
Mhm.
We were afraid
Mhm.
of something,
Mhm.
like especially trauma comes out of a state of fear. If you're sitting in a room with somebody Like you're in a small room, right? And you're sitting next to somebody and they are really fearful. You can feel it, right? It's
Mm-hmm.
tangible, right? They don't have to say, I'm afraid. You can feel that fear, right? Maybe they're even, shaking. And on extreme level, they're going to pee their pants, right? That kidney fear energy, they're going to
Mm-hmm.
pee their pants on an extreme level, lose control of their bladder. But even without that level, you can feel that fear. Now, if you decided to jump into that fear, be like, oh, I know what that's like. I remember that fear. And you start talking about your own fear and you feel that own fear. What's going to happen in that room? That fear is going to grow. It's going to get stronger. And you're like feeding that fear. But if you sit with that person who is really fearful and you sit and you recognize their fear and you sit and you say, I gonna take my state of being and be in a space of pure love. I'm just
Mm.
gonna be love, be in a state of love. Then what's gonna happen to that fear? It's gonna subside and the love will grow and it'll change the whole room. I've done this as a
Mm-hmm.
holistic nurse and as a healer. I've done this countless numbers of times with people. And it
Mm-hmm.
works every single time on some level. So
Mm-hmm.
this is dealing with another person.
Mm-hmm.
But when we're experiencing trauma, it is like dealing with another person. You're dealing with the person who experienced the trauma.
Mm-hmm.
So what do we want to do with that person, that energy of that person that experienced the trauma is we want to be loved.
Mm.
We want to hold the space of love and compassion because
Mm-hmm.
anything else will only increase that lower vibrational energy. It'll feed that.
Mm-hmm.
And we get caught in that. So showing ourselves this non-judgment, this compassion, this true compassion for ourselves, for that other aspect of our being. So it begins with, how do I feel? Then we say, okay, why am I doing what I'm doing? Because how many times, for those of us who have like PTSD type responses, like I don't deal, it's not an issue for me anymore, but I lived my whole,
Mm-hmm.
good part of my life with very reactionary to not what was
Right.
happening now, but things that reminded the cells in my body of what happened before that I wasn't present for. Because when you're going through trauma, the body's there, but the spirit's like, I'm out. The mind is like,
Right.
I can't process this. I'm out, leaving the
Mm-hmm.
body to deal with it alone.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So then the body's holding it, but the body isn't, it's wise, but doesn't know. So that when you get a situation and the mind's like, oh shit. And the body's like, "Brr, brr, brr, brr," on fire. And the mind's like, okay, I hear you. Pow, let me attack. Right?
Mm-hmm.
Let me
Mm-hmm.
throw that punch, or let me be angry, or let me shut down, whatever it may be, our reaction. So learning to be able to look inside before we react to a situation is ask ourselves, why am I doing what I'm doing? And the answer always needs to be, my intention's pure, right? Is it coming from a pure heart? And that takes a lot of practice.
Mm-hmm.
What is am I doing what I'm doing with pure intention? Is it for the betterment of this person who is in front of me? Am I showing compassion with this situation? So the question of, how do I feel? Then why am I doing what I'm doing? Right. And then we can, I talk about the third question to that is, where have I done the same thing or something similar? If we're dealing with, we feel like somebody is doing something to us, which is never the case,
Okay.
right?
Right.
Nobody does anything to us.
Mm-hmm.
We are just having an experience together,
Mm-hmm.
right? So,
Right.
and we've always, we're not angels on earth here.
For sure. For
So we can ask ourselves to allow ourselves to get into that space of non-judgment, to say, okay, where have I kind of done something similar to this or done the same thing? And if you're honest with yourself, you'll find the answer every single
For
time. I've never seen it differently because we're all just being human here,
Mhm,
right? We're all just being human. So that's one way of that I would say like is three good questions to begin with for somebody beginning this process of dealing with trauma is how do I feel? And then looking at that with non-judgment and just seeing it as energy. And where is it
mhm,
happening in your body? Like really notice where in the body it is. Then why am I doing what I'm doing? Right? What is the motivation for my next step? Is it because of that, in this case, that feeling here and I'm reacting from that? Or am I coming from a place of a pure heart and from love and a place of peace?
mhm,
Right. So those are really important steps, I think, to take, to be at least in the beginning process of this. And, of course, I think a real key thing is meditation, learning to sit quietly, to learn that be able to observe inwardly when there's no external circumstances happening
mhm.
and look at your internal environment and as things show up to be able to say, okay, I see you. I see what's happening here and I'm going to sit here with you. I will be a companion with you and hold this space with you. Right.
Woo! Woo! First off, I feel it necessary to say maybe because my students are primarily the ones that watch my podcast, that I have in all of my years met no shortage of guru or, teacher, philosopher, what have you. I have not met very many people that I consider myself fortunate enough to meet because not only do they talk the talk, but they walk the walk. And you walk the walk. And I have to thank you for that because you walking the walk has gently guided me in directions that I didn't even know existed. So I thank you for that. As you're talking, though, you remind me of a friend of mine at one point in time gave me what I was considering the best advice that I could have ever gotten. And he said, "Look, you're in pain. So be in pain. Don't try to run from it." And that's very similar to what you're saying, only I'm stubborn. I'm really a hard headed, I'm a guy. I was abused. I am in this society. I'm a Taurus. I've got it all working against me. My father, when I was 9 years old, somebody asked me how stubborn I am. When I was 9 years old, my dad was cutting a tree down from a ladder and he came down off of the ladder and he's got a scar here and dried blood on his face. And he says to my mom, "I need to go to the hospital." And she said, "What happened?" And he said, "The chainsaw bounced off of my head." And then she says, "Joe, why's the blood dry?" And he said, "I had to finish the job before I came down." So this is what I come from. I have no hope of not being stubborn. So when he gave me that advice, if you're in pain, be in pain, I took that as literally fine. I got to sit here and just be in pain and feel the pain and just feel it until it's over. And there wasn't the compassion aspect of it, right? That I think is so very important. And your book has talked about different ways that you had technique or ways of compassionately handling or dealing with yourself. And I was hoping that you would also maybe get into like some of those, like how can the average person just meet themselves with compassion? Because I think even people that aren't experiencing trauma, most people are just generally not very nice to themselves. They're either like tuned out to where they don't really check in with themselves, or they're kind of in my boat where you're just going to be mean to yourself. If I make a mistake, I typically will drag myself through the mud until that mistake is not going to happen again, so to
Right.
speak,
No, I get
So,
that, and I've been there, done that, and even to the
mhm,
point where when I did fighting arts, I mean, I used my body like a battering ram. I cared so
mhm,
little of myself.
mhm,
I had no problem taking shots.
mm,
I just cared so little about myself and my body that I
Hmm.
would hit and hit and hit, and you keep hitting me, I don't care, I'll keep coming. But that was not a healthy thing, right? It was.
For sure.
But with what you just talked about, another thing I think that's really important, and this was not necessarily in my book, it's something I've learned since, kind of most of this is a lot of it is self-taught, just by trial and error.
Sure. Sure.
But I've, many teachers and I listen to people,
Yes.
I listen to wise people but one of the things that I've come up with that I think is critical in this, and I think it speaks to it really, if we were not on a podcast, I would bring this up because of what you just said. Okay.
Okay.
We have to learn what are our false narratives, right? And we spoke about this at the summit. So
Yeah.
we have to see what are the beliefs that we have come to believe who we are based on what we have been told.
Hmm.
So oftentimes I will look at something that I say about myself or an action I take, and I'm like, okay, that's a belief I have about myself. Usually it comes out in words.
Right.
And I ask myself, well, is that really who I am?
Mm,
Is that just what I've come to believe who I am? Or is that my true nature? And
mm,
more times than not, the things we say about ourselves, particularly those of us who have had less than optimal lives, then more times than not, they're false beliefs. And
mm,
sometimes as we get closer and closer to our true nature, because from a Taoist perspective, that's like the goal. What is my true nature?
right.
So
Right.
what is my true nature? And can my life be an expression of that true nature? Right.
Hmm.
And everything I do, I want it to be an expression of my true nature, because our true nature is always beautiful. It's
Mm,
always powerful. It's always amazing. And it's always for the good of everyone. Always. It's never different. So all those false narratives, and I do this constantly. I am
hmm.
constantly looking at and chipping away at these little beliefs that I've come to believe about myself. And I'll give you one real example. I spent most of my life with the belief of that I am less than.
Mm,
I would say almost my entire life, I had come to the belief that I am less than. And it
mm,
showed in myriad ways. It expressed
mhm,
itself. So these beliefs that we have come, what I call false narratives,
mhm,
when we come to believe in them so deeply, they express in all aspects of our lives.
mhm,
So not long ago, I started looking at that belief.
mhm,
I realized, wait, that I am not less than. So if I'm not less than, if I've been told that and shown that in so many ways in the way I've been treated, and that I took on as who I was, then what am I then? If I'm not less than, then what am I? So then I start working on that, looking at what am I truly,
mhm.
right? And then I start looking at that. And it's a process. It's not, a lot of times things may show up or somebody says something like, I'm not a lousy teacher,
Mhm,
points it out, right? Or
mhm,
you are not less than. But
mhm.
can't hear it. We can't just hear it from somebody else. We have to do the work internally, because somebody can
Absolutely.
tell us till the cows come home that, opposite of that belief that we've come, but we have to make the change inside. So we have to keep looking at it and looking at it and say, oh, that's that old belief, that old narrative,
Mm,
false narrative. Now let me turn it on its head and let
mhm,
me look at what is the reality here, because the reality is what we make it,
mm,
right? The reality is what we make it. The reality is our state of being. So if
mhm.
my state of being has been I am less than, I'm going to carry myself like this and everything is going to be like this. But
Yeah.
then if I say, okay, my state of being now is one of power and being peace and love, like being a state of being is one of loving energy and power, that powerful energy.
Mhm.
Now I'm not doing it to overcome others. I'm doing it to be in my own being, to recognize
Mhm.
that. And now I know I'm not less than anything.
Mhm.
I'm not more than anything either. I'm just
Right,
who I
right,
am.
right.
You see what I'm saying? So so it's like we have to learn to change these, to see the reality of what it really is, not this false
Mhm.
reality, I guess is what it is. False narrative, false realities. Um,
So what's interesting about that is that I had my Zen teacher. He said that the problem with most people is that the view that they have of themselves is a view that they have accumulated over however many years they've been alive with everybody they've interacted with. So the view that you have of yourself is not the view that you have. It's a view that you own from other people's interpretation of you or from your interpretation of other people's interpretation of you. And so, what he was saying in that, he also said to me that my mantra needs to be stop being the poor boy you were raised to be and just be. Those words hit like a arrow straight through every single time, even to this day. Like I feel it in my spine. But so what he was saying though is that, like, similar to what you just said, if you recognize oh, I'm bad at math arbitrarily, is that because I'm bad at math? Or is that because I had a teacher who only taught a certain way that, didn't teach the way that I needed to learn? And then that teacher said, math's probably not your thing because I just wasn't picking it up the way they were putting it down. Do you know what I'm saying? And
yes,
so he was saying that there's that accumulation and that exists for not just the people living less than ideal lives, but for all of us, really. And then to shift ever slightly. Okay. So, my story, and I've had these, I call them microcosms of breakthrough, is what I call them. So
I
I
like
have,
it.
I have, I have points of time in my life where I'm going through these microcosms of healing, breakthrough, whatever.
Of
And when
course.
I experience them, I feel them so physically, like on a visceral level. And I think that's probably in part because I'm more in tune with my body from the birth defect, from the trauma and all that, than the average person. But since Marshall Summit, I've had this whole time has been a microcosm of healing. And it's not daily, but maybe I'll be meditating and then a wave of, it starts with extreme grief. The biggest thing that your book did for me is it made me have a breakdown. And the breakdown was that I now love who I am. And I am legitimately sorry to universe or source or God or whoever that I ever thought about ending my life. Do you know?
Yeah.
But I am now feeling that in this very vibrational way where I'll have this breakthrough and I'll have that feeling, and first it's guilt and the guilt and the sorrow, and then I release that guilt and sorrow and just feel love. But as I feel love and I feel that warmth and that embrace, I also start to feel tension releasing, like maybe in my hips or my back, and it just is vibrating so aggressively that I'm sitting here shaking with the feeling. And it doesn't last very long, but it does happen. I don't know if you know what that is. I don't know.
Wow.
What is
Yeah.
that?
So, it's just all energy. See it?
Mm-hmm.
Everything is energy, right? That's all it ever is. It's just all energy, and it's information within that energy.
Mm.
Right. And so I agree completely with what you said. I like that. I've not heard it said that way, what your Zen teacher said about that. All this is, what the projections that we've taken
Mm-hmm.
on. And I'll take that to the next step. Okay. So I had a near death experience, what I call a short-term death experience, right? I don't even call it near
Short-term
death.
death.
I
I
call it
like that.
short-term death. I
I
was
like.
there for a bit. Who knows? Time and space doesn't exist there. I don't know
Mhm,
how long, because it was a drowning, so I don't know how
mm,
long I was drowning.
mhm,
Doesn't matter. I went for a while, came back. So short-term death experience. And the sense of peace was something that so it happened when I was 12. So it was quite some
mhm,
that was a long time ago.
mhm,
And my whole life, I felt like in this lifetime, you cannot experience that level of peace, right? Like it just was not available as long as you're in the human body. So, like you, through a good part of my younger life, I just wanted this life to be over with, right?
mhm.
I just wanted out because I knew that level of peace and living in this body
Right,
sucked, right?
right, right.
And then it got better and better and better. So
Mhm,
I stopped wanting this life to be over, but I still wanted that level of peace. And
mhm,
I always said, you can't have that within this lifetime. And then during a meditation a number of years back, I experienced the exact same thing I experienced when I drowned. And it was the same. And I'm
mm,
thinking to myself afterward, well, I guess I can experience that level of peace while I'm still alive in this human body. And then I worked as a hospice nurse for many years.
mhm,
So I've been a present witness to hundreds of people, going through the dying process all the way until
mhm,
they actually died.
mhm,
And so watching that process happen, and what my conclusion is this, and this speaks to kind of what you're talking about
mhm,
and what you're experiencing is many levels of this big level, okay?
mhm,
Is what I define as pure peace is when we have let go of all of the life experience that we carry with us.
mm,
So when you let go, so when somebody dies, like physically dies, all of that stuff that's held in their body
mhm,
is gone, right? All of the life experience you're carrying in this gravity laden physical being
mhm,
it dissipates. And then the spirit continues. And we have it in our verbiage in our society. That person is now at peace, right?
mhm,
They are at peace now. So when we have let go of all that we carry in ourselves, all of our life experience, which is what happened to me when I had my short term death experience and what happened when I was in that meditation. I mean, if
mhm.
I felt like if somebody was looking at me, I would have been levitating. I'm sure I wasn't, but that's the way it felt
Right.
at the time because I had let go of all of my life experience, that all of the life experience I carry. I didn't let go of the life experience, but the ones that I carry,
Mhm,
like a rocks in a backpack,
mhm,
right? And I felt that level of peace. So, but it it can happen quickly like that. Like you can go out and drown. It's going to happen really quick, right? Or or you
sure.
can get to a state in a meditation and it can happen there. But of course, you got to then come back and live your life.
Mhm,
But we can do it in small increments. So there's levels of being at peace. And so what I think you're experiencing is you are slowly letting go of some of those rocks that you carry,
it feels like it.
right?
Feels like it.
So, and each time you do that, you start to lighten a little bit, also become more settled,
Mhm,
and you become a little bit more peaceful, a little bit more content. And then all of a sudden you wake up and it's like, wow, I feel like happy today. I
right.
feel, and I got to tell
What's
you,
that?
recently, I'll tell you this, my whole life, I looked at people who talked about joy and I said,
Mhm,
it eluded me my entire,
mm.
life. I had no idea what people were talking about. I could see people that were joyful,
Mhm.
and I'm like, how the hell are you doing that? Right? Like that, it eluded me, totally eluded me until recently. And now I experience joy all the time. It is just part of my daily being. And this is something that eluded me for 64 years. So what's the rush? It
What's
can
the rush?
happen. It can happen, but it happens a little at a time. And once in a while, you have like a major breakthrough, what I would
Mhm.
call an awakening. And I've had three awakenings, what I would call awakenings, where everything just changed. Like
Mhm.
so dramatic that I could not see anything the same way again. But those views at the top of the mountain don't come without climbing the mountain.
For sure. For
You
sure.
gotta you gotta do the work. It's not, but as I said recently, and this is another piece to the puzzle that I've learned recently. So I
Mhm.
was out in Colorado at this Universal Consciousness Festival at my teacher's place called the Dow House. And there was this woman,
That's a good
Danielle.
name. It's a good
Yeah, yeah.
name.
And this woman, Danielle Brooks, who had been teaching there, really cool stuff. And we were sitting at lunch with a bunch of people, and we were talking about the spiritual path. And I kept saying, it's hard work. You gotta do the work. It's hard work. And that's, it's kind of a little bit of my Russian background too, and also my trauma response,
Right.
a false narrative that I had come to believe. Life is suffering and you gotta plow through it. Right. And
Mhm.
I'm an ox and I will plow through that suffering, right? That like kind of what you were talking about.
Mhm.
And she looks at me, she's sitting right next to me. This was brilliant, right? And she says to me, she goes, "You may want to rethink that." So I sat with that. I didn't do anything with it. I thanked her. I
Mhm.
didn't do anything with it. I thanked her. I said, "Oh, thank you for pointing that out." And I sat with it overnight. And what came to me the next morning when I didn't try to do anything about it was it is not hard work. It's a labor of love. So your healing, your work that you put into yourself or your students, whoever's listening to this right now, it's a labor of love,
Mm.
right? You are looking at yourself, you're looking at your original being, that light, that amazing person that you are, that you've always been and always will be. The
Mhm.
work is to reveal that. It is a
Mm.
labor of love. And that was life changing for me.
Absolutely.
It shifted everything.
Mhm.
So it's these little things. I'm not saying somebody has to look at it that way.
Mhm.
You got to
Mhm.
find your own verbiage. You have to find your
For
own
sure. For
way of
sure.
look. But these are just examples to point you to your way of peace,
Mhm.
right? To your peace. This is just what's happened with me, but I'm not you and you're not me.
Right.
But it's to show that this is possible.
Mhm.
Finding peace, finding joy in our lives, being in a state of love. Our state of being is all that matters, and it affects all that matters. So if your state of being is I am in a state of trauma response
Mhm.
or trauma action, it's going to affect everything that matters. Everything that matters. But if your
Mhm.
state of being in that moment is I am peaceful, I am calm, I am quiet, I am loving, I am
Mhm.
joyful,
Mhm.
then that is what will affect all that matters. And then, so as we start getting, it's like, I remember a long, long time ago when I first started my work on my PTSD,
Mhm.
really at the very beginning, when I started working on this in my 20s, that or like my late 20s, is we could either be on a negative cycle or we can be on a positive cycle, is the way I termed it then. And we
Mhm.
can jump from one wheel to the other at any given moment in time,
Absolutely.
right?
I'm good at that.
Right. Aren't we right? We're really good at that. But once we realize it's a choice, It's a choice we make. It's a conscious choice. We have to constantly, we have to be so diligent on paying attention all the time, all the time. But it's a labor of love, so we want to do it, right?
Well, what's interesting that you say a labor of love is because my last round of like microcosm healing came because I have this strong desire to teach, and I know that that comes from the fact that my trauma was directly affected and directly stopped because of my martial arts skill. And so like then it became like I can teach other people to not do this thing. And I could teach other people to not do this thing. And my Zen master, he said, yeah, but if you're not loving yourself, then you're not giving that full lesson to anybody else. And that took a long time to like sink in, still sinking in, like, but I changed the verbiage and I now say that I am a good teacher because I am such a good student,
I love it.
you know,
I love it.
because that is the difference for me.
Yeah, I
So
love that.
I thank you for that. So there's a lot that is interesting about everything that we have said in ways that we can't always articulate. I do want to tell you that all of Marshall Summit, prior to you speaking to me, I kept hearing a voice, and I hear this voice randomly since, and she says, stop getting in your own way. Very calmly, very lovingly, very simply. Do you know? So there that is. That's the driving force behind that calling that I spoke to you about before we hit record. Stop getting in their own way. I say that, I bring it up because I've heard it while we're sitting here. So
Okay.
it's important to voice. I think it's important to own in that capacity. I don't want to shift away from healing and from this conversation that we're having. But what I would like to do is if we can get to a martial understanding for my martial arts students, you know, like breathing exercises or specific postures, like what things can we do as martial artists that help our healing, in your opinion?
Wow. Yeah, again, that's a big question, right? And part of it is, yeah, part of it is it depends on the person,
Mm-hmm.
right? And
Mm-hmm.
where they are in that moment of time. Like part of my healing came from doing full contact fighting,
Okay.
right?
How do you think that you healed in those moments
Because
doing that?
it taught me to know that I could take care of myself physically, kind of like what
Mm,
you did when
mm,
you were younger. It
mm-hmm.
helped me let go of some of that fear that I carried with me. But then I had to heal from that, from the aggression, right?
Right, right.
It was just a stage. So I saw it as a stage. So I
Mm-hmm.
did full contact fighting for about 5 years,
Mm-hmm.
really, heavy duty stuff. And it taught me to be able to be like, okay, I can take care of myself now. And I don't have to physically be afraid anymore. Like I don't always have to be on guard all the
Mm,
time and to think I'm going to be ineffective. Right. But
sure.
really, now I look back, this would have been almost 30 years ago. I can't believe that. It's almost 30 years ago that I was doing that. And now I look back at that person that was doing that and I think he wasn't a very good, very effective fighter compared to what I feel like I would be now.
Mm-hmm.
Part of it is, and this I learned this, everything I learned through direct experience, or everything I talk
Mm-hmm.
about, I should say, is
Mm-hmm.
direct experience. I don't
Mm-hmm.
regurgitate, right? I
Sure.
don't like regurgitation, right? I may quote teachers and things like that, but I don't regurgitate. If I didn't experience it, I don't talk about it.
Mm-hmm.
And so as martial artists, there's going to be different stages. So like I said, I did the full contact fighting to help me
Mm-hmm.
let go of some of that fear. But
Okay.
once I realized, like, you can try to hurt me and I'm gonna be fine, right? I'm gonna
Mhm.
be fine. I can take a lot before you're gonna, before I'm going down, right?
Mhm.
If
Mhm.
need be. And I also know how to hurt another human being, right? Just I'm
Mhm.
sure like you as well. But if we look at it from a healing perspective, we want to go more, we want to look internally. We want to know what is, and this is where the art of Tai Chi Chuan comes in
Mhm.
for me, right? That's my
Mhm.
core art. I did Kung Fu and
Mhm.
did other arts, but is the Tai Chi Chuan. And Tai Chi Chuan is the two of the basic concepts are that it is our movements and our powers based on the eight extraordinary vessels,
Mhm.
our original chi that
Mhm.
informs our body. And when we learn to move that energy, then the power, and this is what I ended up teaching at the summit. I taught a Qigong that helps us to recognize and open up and become familiar with the eight extraordinaries in our own bodies so that
Mhm.
when we're moving from our original energy. And
Mhm.
then the body, you just get good body mechanics, right? Good
Mhm.
physics so that
Mhm.
we can express it in a way that gives it a way to express through the body. You have to have good structure, things like that. Learning that good structural body, getting to know your body, as you said, right?
Mhm.
But not abusing the body, right? So getting to know, I did that for a long time. Like I said, I didn't care about myself. So I abused the hell out of myself and I let other people continue to abuse me as I learned to hurt them. And so then I recognized, okay, that's not good anymore. It was good
Right.
then, but it wasn't good
Right.
anymore. So then learning to work with your internal energies and then you start recognizing the foundation of who you are, also the foundation of what you're holding on to. You start letting go of what gets in the way, right? You let go of the rocks in the river, right? And you start moving the rocks out of the way so that the river can flow freely. And then another thing that I do as part of my own practice as a martial artist and as a healing art, because part of healing is to recognize your own,
Mhm.
right? To come into the
Mhm.
space of this is my power, this is my space, this is my power, and being okay. It
Mhm.
took me a long time to be okay with what my true power is, right? Real, and to be able to even say that is a little weird for me,
Mhm.
right? It feels like, no, I shouldn't be saying that, but that's a
Mhm.
false narrative
That's
because we
right.
all have an innate power in us. We
Mhm.
all have it. Every one of us has this innate power, and we can develop that and cultivate that. And one of the things that I do is it's another concept that's central to Tai Chi Chuan is the idea of learning to gather, open, close, gather, and release.
Yes. Yes. Yes.
Learning to close and open, like learning to have your whole body be like your lungs and your heart. Your heart is opening and closing. Your lungs are opening and closing, and they never collapse. There's always space there. We all learn to own our space, right? So I've learned to own
Mhm.
my space. That is incredibly healing to know where I am, where my energy is. And then because of that, I can recognize where your energy is. And if we like each other, it becomes like a Venn diagram. We can
Mhm.
connect our energy. If I don't like you, then I just allow myself to have space between us. It's
Mhm.
just energy here. Your energy's here, my energy is here, right? But
Mhm.
if we like each other, it becomes connected. But I'm still my space. You're still in your
Yes.
space. We're still individuals. So in that way, so if I'm fighting somebody, I can recognize that. But I don't fight like this, right? This is not my fight. I can do it, of course, right? Trained fighter,
Mhm.
no big deal. Super easy
Right.
to do. But my idea as a martial artist, and this was real healing for me, I worked on a psychiatric unit as a nurse, and I was inpatient psychiatric unit, and I was a trainer in the hospital for um, de-escalation and restraints. So
Okay.
if somebody was delusional and being really violent, I was like one of the first people. If I was working that day, I was the first person in a locked room with somebody
Mhm.
who wants to kill me, like literally
Mm.
wants to kill me or wants to hurt
Mhm.
me. But so my first thought always was, okay, I don't want to get hurt and I don't want any of the staff to get hurt or any of the other
Sure.
patients to get hurt. So first I had to say, okay, I'm not going to get hurt because I care about myself, as opposed to
Mhm.
when I did fighting arts and like, go ahead, hit me. I'm going to hit you back. Right.
Right.
I could
Right.
care less. You hit me all you want. I'm hitting you back. That's really brute force, not giving a crap about yourself. There's no healing in that. Right. That's just violence to ourselves and to those around us. But when I could say, I really care about myself, and no matter what you do to me, I'm not going to get hurt. That's where the skill comes in.
Mhm.
You have to have skill to be able to do that. You have to have the confidence that somebody is going to try to do something to you and you're not going to get hurt. So I had to develop a lot of martial skill to be able to do that. But then to take it to the next level is I'm also not going to hurt you.
Mm.
So just because you're trying to hurt me, I am going to care for you as much as I care for myself because we are one and the same.
Mm.
We are just both experiencing this situation. And because of the parameters we were given at the time, they've changed these in the hospital I worked in at the time. We weren't allowed to hurt the patient. We weren't allowed to use force, which I'm glad at the
Right.
time. I'm
Right.
really glad for that. And only one time did I ever get hurt because it was a situation. I backed a guy into a corner. He had hurt a couple other people. He'd done a lot of damage. He threw like cabinets at us, put a couple people in the emergency department, and he got in the corner. And all of a sudden I looked at him and I was supposed to restrain this guy. And he gave me this look like a trapped rat. And I
Mm.
said, shit, in my head. And I tightened. So when I restrained him, I hurt my shoulder. He didn't
Mm.
hurt me. I hurt my shoulder because I tightened when I went to go restrain him. I was able to restrain him and I didn't hurt him.
Right.
I never once hurt somebody restraining them, not once. And so it taught me that this is possible. And these are people that were delusional. So you couldn't really
Right.
reason with them at that point, which I believe anybody who's trying to hurt another human being is delusional,
Right.
right? And
On
that
some level, for
on
sure.
some level, right?
Even if it's just a delusional out of desperation, still
Right.
delusional.
For whatever
Yes.
reason, they have a need to hurt another human being. So we
Mhm.
don't want to become that. Just like that analogy I gave before, if I'm in a room with somebody who's fearful, I want to be in a state of peace and a state of being of love. Just be love. Not trying to
Mhm.
do anything, just be it. And it's the
Mhm.
same if somebody as a martial artist, somebody's trying to physically attack me. They're being violent doesn't mean I need to be violent.
Mhm.
I need to be a state of peace
Mhm.
because that's what I want. I don't want to hurt this other human being. And I learned that later on when I was actually doing push hands with somebody. He's like, "Oh yeah, give me a good shove." I was on his ribs. He's like, "You got to push in." And I was like, "I don't want to do that." Like all of a sudden I was like, "I don't want to." Like
Mhm.
inside, I was like, I had no desire to shove him.
Mhm.
And it taught me like, okay, it's because so I've become that peaceful. So when if somebody's attacking me, and I do this verbally as well, because we know whether you're punching with a fist or words, it's
Right.
just energy. It's always just energy. So if somebody's bringing violence on me,
Mhm.
I have a choice in that moment. Do I also add to the violence? And then
Mm.
one of us is going to get hurt. Maybe it'll be
Mhm.
me. Maybe it'll be them. Maybe it'll be
Mhm.
both of us. And as my kung fu teachers used to say, you better be damn well you needed to do it if you're sitting in a jail cell for 25 years, right? I took that very seriously because the stuff he was showing us, you could end up in a
Mhm.
jail cell for,
Yeah.
right? I mean, one punch, you can end up in a jail cell. Somebody falls down and hits their head, right? And now you got to, some judge is going to decide, was that justified?
Mhm.
You're at the mercy of that. So you got to ask yourself, is this really worth it?
Mm-hmm.
Right. So, but to take it to the next level, so you develop your skill so that
Mm-hmm.
you can then relax,
Mm-hmm.
knowing you're not going to get hurt.
Mm-hmm.
Then the next stage is, now I also don't want to hurt this other human being because my goal is peace.
Mm-hmm.
That's the goal. The goal isn't more violence.
Well, I don't know if you realize this or not, but this answer is the same as the very first answer, because the answer is feel the discomfort, sit with it, and then choose your next action. The attack is discomfort, recognize it, and then choose peace, choose the next answer.
Thank you for that.
It's the
So
same,
we have violence coming from within us,
right?
right? I love that. I didn't even think about that. Thank you
No,
for
it was
pointing
the
that out.
exact same.
So basically, I just keep saying the same thing over and over.
No, 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 no. No,
No,
the
that's
good
great.
lessons
Thank
comes
you for
back around.
pointing that out. That's really
Yeah.
cool. That's really, I hadn't thought of that, but that's very cool. Right. So we don't develop our martial arts to be violent.
Mm-hmm.
We develop our martial arts, our skill, so that we can be at peace when violence is occurring.
Mm-hmm. Well, you know what's interesting to me also is that I had an instructor, may he rest in peace, Mike Whiting, who said, our job is not to be good martial artists. Our job is to be as good of a vessel as we can for martial art to flow through.
Like that.
You
That's
know?
beautiful. I like that.
And
But
I
of
like
course, at the beginning, you got to develop skill, right?
right, right,
You got to
right,
develop
right,
structure. You got to, you got to know how to make a fist. I mean,
right.
how do you make a fist even, right? You got to start somewhere, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
It doesn't happen. These are lofty concepts we're talking about here that
Absolutely.
came from, a long time of practice. They didn't happen overnight. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
I was a train wreck when I was younger.
Same.
I was really a train wreck of a human being. So it didn't happen in one, and it happened with a lot, I fought like you said, that you got to get out of your way. I fought myself all the way through this. I'm fighting against myself throughout all of this. And I still, but the cool thing is, so I'll say this though. So I've been practicing formally for 37 years, right? Formally
Mm-hmm.
practicing, but I wrestled growing up and I did some other stuff in between, but formally consistently for 37 years. I cannot wait for my next 40 years of practice where it will,
Mm-hmm.
if these 37 years took me from that place of physical disability and emotional disability and human being disability to a place of being at peace, feeling joy, feeling compassion, right? And being in this state and life happening in really cool ways. I can't wait to see what the next 40 years will bring.
Mm-hmm.
So now
Absolutely.
it's like this amazing labor of love, right? But we have
Mm-hmm.
to be so patient because it doesn't have, it took a lot. I'm a really slow learner, right? I don't learn quick. My kung fu teacher
Right.
used to say he's never seen somebody who had to learn to do this so many times before, or learn to do this before, getting hit 1,000 times before they learn to do this.
Uh-huh.
But because I did it to myself, like you said, I was doing it to myself. I had to learn not to keep beating myself up,
The same. Same.
right? And I think
Same.
anybody who's experienced, particularly, strong levels of discomfort in their life. I mean, we've all had, and that's all right. So here's another piece to it. I'm going to take you on a little tangent with this too,
Okay.
is that if you're only content when things are going well, you're going to be pretty unhappy a lot of the time.
Mm. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So we learn to be
Absolutely.
content and okay when things suck,
Mm-hmm.
right? It's pleasant, unpleasant make no difference. They're both just experiences I'm having. And
Mhm.
sometimes things will be pleasant and sometimes they will be unpleasant.
Mhm.
And we have to learn to be, and that goes back to just being okay with whatever we're feeling and just sitting with that, right? That goes back to that idea. So that's another piece to the puzzle, is learning to be okay with the and I don't use the terms good or bad. I use the term pleasant or unpleasant.
I like that. It reminds me of a Buddhist teaching, you know, because you don't seek happiness, because happiness is one side of the pendulum. And the happier it gets, the higher up this gets, it's going to swing the other way. And if it swings the other way, that's misery. Seek balance, seek the middle.
Yeah,
That's
equilibrium.
really interesting.
It's we're looking for equilibrium, because equilibrium is a moving thing, whereas balance
Hmm.
is kind of static. So we say, okay, I want to be in a state of equilibrium because it's always moving. It's we're always moving. Everything is movement all the time. This was one of my
Yes.
awakenings. Everything is in movement all the time. Everything.
Hmm.
There's
Hmm.
nothing that is not moving, right? And that is the
Love it.
stillness that we look for.
I love.
Okay. So yeah, so I got a little tangent there. So that, but as a
No, no, no.
martial artist, so for
It's
the
good.
martial artist, I say develop your skill
Hmm.
that you can then relax so that you can love yourself enough that you don't want to get hurt, and that you have enough skill that you can love the other person as yourself. Because if you hurt them, you're hurting yourself,
Hmm.
right? Any regrets I've had in my life, right? Because there's a saying, they make a lot of medicine to cure regret, but or to cure disease, but there's no medicine to cure regret.
Mm.
And the regrets, I always have regretted the times I've hurt another human being. I
Hmm.
regret that. And you can't change that. But so what I do is try to live my life that I don't pick up a disease I can't cure. So I don't want to hurt anybody because I will regret it at some point.
Absolutely.
So we develop that skill that we can love the other as ourselves,
Hmm.
and love ourselves, love them as ourselves. So we don't have to hurt somebody, but you develop the skill so you can actually do that.
Beautiful. Beautiful, sir. Beautiful. So I keep these at about an hour.
Okay.
I could probably talk for another three. If so, is there anything that you didn't get a chance to say, or anything that you'd like to say? Closing words?
I think for the context of this is, it's possible to live in a different state of being if you're not comfortable in the state of being you're in. It's possible.
Yes.
But it takes effort, right? You can't sit and do nothing, right? You have to pay attention all the time. You're worth it. You are worth it. You are worth the effort to find your original nature, to let that
Mm,
original nature shine and express your life through that, and you will find peace.
absolutely. Absolutely. Well, and also, see, look, we're gonna get into something else. The end of your book, where you said you gave three attributes, and I don't want to quote you because I'm going to butcher it, but quality being one of those attributes, the quality of the work being put in. And I've been harping with the people that I am teaching about quality, you know, like, yeah, you can do that kick 100 times, or you can do that kick as good as you possibly can 10 times. And the quality and the intention of that quality means more than the repetitions of 100. Do you know?
I almost wonder, as a teacher, this would be a cool thing. So your students don't listen to this. Okay. Don't
You got
listen
to
because
cut it off
it'll be
now.
a surprise. So the next time you teach one of your kicks, say, okay, we're going to do these kicks, and only have them do it once. And then ask him,
Mm,
and then go on somebody else, say, was that the best you could have done with that kick? Was that your best kick? And then you
that's
could say,
interesting.
okay, one more time.
Want just one more.
Yeah, one more
Just one
time.
more.
And then when they do it, and to be like, okay, was that your best kick that you possibly could have done in that moment?
Mm,
Because that's the only kick that matters,
that's right.
is that present moment, right? So yeah, the quality, our intention. Quality has
Mhm.
to do with our intention.
Mhm.
It doesn't, it's not the outcome, it's the intention, because
Mhm.
your intention will change the outcome every single time. With the same action will be different. The outcome will be different. Exact same action with a different intention
Mhm.
every single time. So try that though. And I want to hear, like,
I
hey,
w
we're going to do sidekick or whatever kicks you guys
Yeah,
do.
yeah, yeah,
And they're
yeah,
going to
yeah.
think they're going to do 100 of them. Just have them do it
Right,
once. Okay.
right.
That's your only chance. That was your only chance to
That
do
was
your
it.
kick, to do your best kick.
That's brilliant. That also teaches, like, that teaches the thing that is hard to teach anyway, which is you only get the one shot.
That's
You
it,
know,
right?
like if we do everything as right as we possibly can and it still somehow gets to be a physical altercation, you don't have times for redos, you know? You don't have time. You don't have time to overthink something. You don't have time to over contemplate. You just have to react. And that's like, even if we're doing the non-violent, we're caring for somebody, you still only have time to react. And I would venture to say that it's less time. You have much less time if we're trying to be careful and care for the person that's in front of us than if we're trying
Right.
to hurt
Well,
them,
and
you know?
it can't be a thought process. It has to be coming from within, right? So that's why we practice, so that it becomes our
Mhm.
natural way of being, right? So I even, as an example, when I go through a door that has like a push bar, I just walk through as if I'm pushing. I don't just push the door. I like mindlessly. Everything is mindful, so that
Mm,
everything is mindful. Everything is mindful.
mindful,
Everything
not
is
mind is full.
right. And so then if I'm using it to push a door, I use it to push a person's no different.
Mhm.
Power is power is power. And how you use it, whether it's to heal or to love or to fight, it's the same power. It's the same movement. It's the same,
Let,
right?
let's end there. That's
Okay, man.
great. That's great. First of all, I want to thank you for taking the time to sit down and have this conversation with me. And then everybody else that does it, I thank for being a part of my martial journey, but you specifically, not just for this, but also for everything that you've done for me in person. And I can't wait to see you again next year. Thank you so much.
Man, thanks. This was great.
To all my students, to all my listeners, thank you for tuning in. Hope you got something out of it. Till next time, keep kicking, guys.
Peace.